So China devalued its currency overnight. Now the move was a total surprise. For a long time, China has been allowing its currency to appreciate, or should I say, it's been, managing it higher. Now China was doing this because America told it to do so. Back in 2004 or 2005, you may recall that Congress threatened to brand China a currency manipulator, and if it did that, it would have mandated tough sanctions like tariffs. Now, many economists and lawmakers back then were saying that China's currency was 27% undervalued. The exchange rate at that time was about 8.27 yuan to the dollar, and eventually that got down to 6. So, guess what? That was a 27% appreciation. China obediently followed the orders of its master, America. Now, frankly, I was a little surprised by today's devaluation for two reasons. One, I thought the Chinese were really focusing on getting away from that export-driven, mercantilist economic model. It hasn't been helping their economy very much over the past several years, all right? And policymakers in China, they were really starting to talk a little bit differently. They were saying stuff like they were going to engage in more domestic spending and investment. Okay, they even talked about running higher deficits, more deficit spending. They actually said that. Higher deficits focused on creating jobs and boosting incomes, like the stuff we ought to be doing, right? Now, all this stuff made me think that China was finally setting out on a new path, and that it finally gave in to America's demand that America be the next China. We wanted to be the ones that exported our way to growth. We wanted to be the ones who kept the wages of our workers low and send our real product, the stuff that we make, we wanted to send that off for the benefit of foreigners. We didn't care, basically, that we had the better end of the deal for a long time under the old arrangement. And the old arrangement, of course, was where the Chinese kept the wages of their workers down and they sent us their real product. Now, under that arrangement, Americans enjoyed a higher standard of living, all right? So the Chinese must have been thinking, those crazy Americans, right? They want to keep their people poor and send us their real stuff that they produce. And they must have said, well, you can't fight crazy. At least that's what I thought. Now, I also said there was a second reason that I was surprised about China's currency devaluation the other night. And that's because China has always been terrified of what the U.S. would do, retaliation or punishment or tariffs, if it manipulated its currency. And frankly, you'd think that would especially be true now when there's a presidential candidate named Donald Trump who's leading in all the polls, and he's talking very openly about how bad China's currency manipulation is, what a huge problem that is, how it's going to be a disaster, his words, for the American economy. So when China devalued, I was really surprised, because it means that China is saying it's not going to listen to the demands of America anymore. And it has no problem starting a currency war, because that's what that is. Starting a currency war basically with Europe and Japan. And both of those places are big currency manipulators. And I guess for China, old habits die hard. For the euro and the Japanese currency, the yen to a certain extent, and probably also to some of the regional currencies like the Aussie and the Kiwi, I think it's a bearish development. So the currency war is on. And by the way, this may pose a new dilemma for Janet Yellen and the Fed, because, they're dying to raise interest rates. We all know that. But the question is, will they now? Can they, if the dollar stays really strong? China may have outmaneuvered the Fed in one bold stroke. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's it for now, folks. This is Mike Norman saying see you next time. Bye-bye.